welcome to another new episode of the Quest for Excellence series brought to you by Intellectus Consulting. The Quest for Excellence series, as you all are aware by now, is an endeavor by our organization to raise the standards of marketing excellence and commercial excellence in our pharmaceutical industry. In this endeavor, we have interactions and free-flowing conversations with business leaders, CEOs, managing directors, vice presidents, chief marketing officers, business unit heads, and even business directors from various pharmaceutical companies across the sector, and try and attempt to understand their perspectives on what it takes to constitute the highest standards of excellence. When I say excellence, it is across all major functional domains that we aspire to cover, such as leadership excellence, brand building excellence, marketing excellence, commercial excellence, and strategy excellence. In our series so far, the business leaders who have come onto our series have very freely and willingly shared their life experiences, their learnings, and most importantly, their aspirations in building their careers in the chosen paths when they decided to make their careers in the industry. Today, there is one such interaction of a business leader who has had a very, very successful track record of building brands and businesses for his organization. My guest for today is Mr. Vinod Varghese, who is the business unit head for enteral nutrition, application devices, and strategic business development for Fresenius Kabi Limited, based out of Pune. As we all know, Fresenius Kabi is a German multinational company which is one of the acknowledged brand leaders in hospital and enteral nutrition products, as well as application devices. Vinod has had a reasonably long stint with the organization for almost 12 years in various roles and responsibilities, such as product management, business development, head of marketing, and now as the head of commercial operations for the enteral nutrition business. Vinod started his career with Wockhardt as a product manager way back in 2000 and worked with the organization for 7 years. Subsequently, he had a short stint with Abbott for almost a year before he moved to Fresenius Kabi in 2008. First, he had a stint in product management and later on became the head of marketing, and along the way also did roles of business development. He was then elevated to the position of business unit head for the enteral nutrition business about 3 years ago, and now heads this business unit as its P&L head. I have known Vinod Varghese for a reasonable time now, and what strikes me most is his extreme level of humility and approachability for people and an ever-learning attitude to learn. It's my pleasure and privilege to have Vinod on this series today and look forward to an interesting interaction with him. It's nice to have you on our series. And I sincerely thank you for having accepted our invite, because I know that it's a busy time of the year where you're occupied with your Salesforce meetings, cycle meetings, and all that. But you have been able to get some time off and talk to us. Is really very nice of you.
It's always my pleasure, Shailesh, interacting with you, working with you. It's always a learning process, So I'm really glad that I could join you in this great, excellent initiative. I'm sure a lot of the young group or the new generation kids also will really benefit from this. Really glad and thanks for making me a part of it.
Thanks a lot. My pleasure as well, Vinod. Let me start our conversation by asking you something which is relevant to your experience. And when I go through your life journey, one thing that strikes me is you've had a very good balance of having worked in the Indian pharmaceutical sector for almost of the first 7 years of your career with a reputed organization such as Wockhardt, and now almost for about 12 odd years with Fresenius Kabi as your current employer. So my first question is, this what have been your fundamental learnings when you compare your initial stint? Now, when you look back, those first 7 years of Indian pharma marketing experience of brand building, and now when you have been working in a multinational kind of an environment, obviously with more Indianized approach to the market, I'm sure you would have been had the opportunity to compare and learn and reflect upon them for the benefit of our audience. If you can share your learnings, along this way, yeah.
Sure, Shailesh. A very important aspect. And I mean, so now what I've put in almost around 24 years. So though my experience will be, it's almost 2.5 decades. So yes, I will not say it is relevant, non-relevant, because every experience definitely gives you a lot of learning. So I was in fact lucky, or, I started my career with sales. So before really getting into marketing, I had a good experience in sales of almost around 5 to 6 years.
Wow.
So I started with Ranbaxy Stan Care division. So I had a good, and then in Wockhardt itself, I went into sales, and then later I could move to the within the same organization, I could move into marketing. So it always gave me a better perspective about how from the other side of the table, as a sales guy, and I always looked into what is there, and so I had that perspective in mind. And when I joined marketing, so definitely from Ranbaxy, Wockhardt, and then multinational like Abbott and Fresenius, there's been huge. There are a lot of changes, of course, in the culture, the way we work. So I'll not say it's good, bad, because each of its perspective have its plus points as well as the minus points. So the great difference is what I noticed is, when you've been working with large Indian multinationals, there are large teams, of course, available. So when I joined there, I had to go through all the rigor, right from product executive to product manager. So it was a very defined, framework, what was there as a product executive or a product manager when you join. And you're supposed to, only attend that domain. So it may be, working with the vendors, or, I'm just working on the execution part. So that was quite defined out there. But the difference here I see is, the multinational companies, it's quite process driven. I'm going to say there are defined processes which you need to follow. You are supposed to do much more because there are not large teams. It's more of a flat organization. So the responsibility or the things of working in the multiple task doing is what there is a lot of scope in doing those multinationals. Decision making is very fast. When you worked with when I saw that when I was working here, the decisions were quite fast. Out here, definitely I see that it takes time, because it doesn't happen that you plan up something and then immediately, of course, there are various processes you need to get cross-functional approvals for all those things. The other thing which I found was what if I really because the decision making was fast, it was my marketing manager, the group product manager, whom I had to convince, really start with the whole process of any initiative which I needed to do. Out here, it is not only the your marketing manager or your boss whom you have to convince. You need to convince a lot of the other cross-functional departments also, because it also the regulatory there, the medical guy is there, to some extent your finance is there. So the whole thing that becomes more channelized, and the whole process then takes some time. So if you really looking for an immediate campaign, say when the last start of the lockdown, okay, you come to know that okay, this lockdown is going to extend because nobody knew. And then all of a sudden, you can really make certain changes in your approach, in your initiatives. So sometimes that becomes a little more tricky and more time consuming when you work in a multinational. So as I said, there are both pluses and minuses. So I could see a huge difference in the working way, the style, the approach, and the culture in both the two sets of organizations.
That is amazing, Vinod. Thanks for the letting us know because yes, I mean, as you said, differences in culture, working style, the speed of decision making.
Yeah, yeah,
There's more reliance on cross-functional leadership approvals in case of MNC environment, whereas decision making is very fast. Your immediate manager gives you approval, yes, no.
yeah.
So pros and cons of working in both the environments.
True,
You
true.
might summarize it correctly.
Yeah.
Vinod, you spent 5 years and sales is such an important piece of our entire business. And my question is actually two parts. If you look back today, I'm sure you must be having a lot of appreciation for the sales function because it helped you ingrain certain real home truths of the selling function, which today when you look at it from a marketing head or even as an evolved business unit head, you would want to bear that in mind, right? When you work through the salespeople for your businesses. Today's brand managers generally I find are not so much akin or tuned to the sales experience piece of it, and they want to directly come into brand management. What is your take on this, and what is your advice to marketeers? Is sales is it required, and I'm sure in what way would you think would you advise them?
A very nice, question, Shailesh, and I'm sure, this always comes very handy. So if you ask my personal experience, as I said, uh,
Yes.
sales has really helped me. The initial, my stint in sales, it really helped me because it actually gives you, because when at the end of the day, as a marketer, whenever you're planning, any campaign or any, brand launch, whatever you're planning, the success of it always lies in the execution. You may have great of ideas and great of brand plans on paper, but as far as if it is not executed the way it has to be, all your biggest marketing activities, events or campaigns, they really find no result in you, and then absolutely what happens is you go back to the planning board and again reinvent the wheel. So I think as a sales guy, as a sales experience, it really helped me as a marketer when I saw that, okay, what are the small, fine tips which really help me in the execution. So if you want to really get your strategies executed well, you need to have understand the pains of the sales executive or the sales guy, what he's, because at the end of the day, he's going to execute it. It's not that you're going to go and get it done. So you will definitely design it, you'll have it, plan it, and the way it has to be executed has to be done by the sales guy. So if you have a good sales understanding, maybe not, I'm not saying you should have it 5 years or 6 years, but you at least understand at the level of sales at each level, again, from the sales executive, the area manager, or the regional zonal managers, because what are their pain points, and then if you're able to address it, if you're able to sell it to your internal customer, then your campaign is going to be, or your strategy is going to be a big hit at the front door, because that guy who's going to drive it, if he takes it up well, if he understands the campaign or the strategy better, then execution becomes much more faster, much more responsive. And of course, the other part of measuring your activities or measuring your strategy, again, it's a feedback directly from the customer, yes, but again from your internal stakeholders, it becomes a big plus point. So my personal take is definitely an initial sales experience really will be the icing on the cake for your career planning, if you're getting into really a marketing career.
Right. And would you also agree, Vinod, that when you have done sales stint and now you're in product management, you are sizably more, I would say, equipped, or knowledgeable to make a guess on whether the strategy will work or not, or get executed.
Absolutely.
And don't you think that is also equally important to know because you're putting so much of resources at stake?
Absolutely, Shailesh. I completely agree with you, because the type of response, and of course, when you're getting into anything, you definitely do a pilot, testing, and then at that time, that is where the key learnings are, and the type of feedback or the experience that you get. I'm sure that decides the fate of that strategy or the activity, whatever you're planning. So
Right.
definitely the initial thing, you would definitely get the taste and flavor of how it is going to turn out.
How are you going to do? And while we are on the same subject, Vinod, I just want to pick your brains again for another important issue. So when we talk of sales stint, like you and at least you spent 5 years doing the sales job 24/7. I did it for about a year and a half before I got into product management as a trainee. Now, what would be your recommendation? Because many companies follow different models. One is they put the guy into the field and say, work in the field 24/7. Or when you're a little more evolved, they say you adopt certain geographical regions, go there for a number of days, work in the field, maybe 5 days, 6 days. And a lot of companies have their brand managers, sending them into the field work kind of a part of their KRAs, that work in these markets, adopt these regions, etc., which is also not a bad thing.
Yeah.
I just want to ask, what are your thoughts around this? Do you think that when you adopt the regions or geographies and go to that market every month versus actually doing the work of the rep, do you think there are any pluses and minuses in this? What's your general take on it? Just
Yeah, so sure, Shailesh. So if you're actually getting into the sales, you really get into the finer details. And when, for example, also I'm sure most of now in my current role, when I'm asking my product managers to really go on the field, obviously I have a defined agenda when I send them, whether it is for a test marketing, whether it is for feedback, or whether it is part of the execution. So if we have, what my take on this will be, say, for example, internally, if you have a certain set of people identified who are getting into marketing, or I will definitely suggest that initially for 1 year they really get into the sales role, whichever level, whether it is the first level, first line, or the second line manager. Go through that rigor in terms of understanding the process. I may not say for 1 year, but at least for 2 or 3 months, understand right from the pre-call activity, or especially when positioning it at the customer, the communication techniques, because the customers, unless and until the KOLs, they don't give you enough time. So what type of communication can be pitched in? What can be actually delivered? What are the type of inputs that you can derive from those will become very handy whenever you are developing it. So initial 2 to 3 months, and probably once you're back into your marketing profile, then definitely the tailor-made approach of getting into the field for either executing or planning even a CME. And if you are really hands-on into it right from the scratch, if you are involved, that gives an enormous experience and a value addition to your entire marketing career, because you understand both the corners, both the sides of the tables, the good, bad, ugly, and then the execution becomes more important.
No, this is very beautifully put by you, Vinod. I think what you're actually sticking to is that it's always nice to get to a full-time sales immersion role for at least 3, 6 months or a year, because you understand the finer nuances, the processes, far better than you were to just go and visit the market and do a helicopter kind of a work, okay, 2, 3 days and then come back, because you might miss out the finer details.
Exactly.
And that is, I think, a very valid point that you're making at some level, because you can never substitute that with just doing the topical work. And it's very nice, and thank you so much, because that's a very good takeaway message. That's for our audience, that you need to have a sales stint and immerse yourself in it if you want to really grow in your career. And actually, like you, business leaders who have come on to our show earlier have also said that it's very difficult to grow without a sales experience. Over fancy the marketing may get, digital, all that stuff, how much ever the landscape may change, all the leaders have been unanimous in saying there's no sales experience.
Absolutely.
So that's one.
Because
let's come to the next piece, and that is, you have spent now 2.5 decades in the industry, and you have been a part of sales, you've seen a part of product management, you've headed marketing function, and now you're looking at it from an overall business head's perspective. What's been your understanding of the evolution of marketing as a function in our industry? How you saw that 25 years ago, if you were to just turn the clock back, and how do you see it last decade? How do you see it now? And maybe even add, your views in this last 16 months when everything has got disrupted. So maybe an overall thing, if you can just give us your understanding, that will be really great for our viewers.
Yeah. Sure, Shailesh, if I really rewind back to, the earlier days, we've been to, whatever, as I rightly before said, that, things that worked that time may not necessarily, may work now. So it was more domain specific or product specific. As I said, it was like, as a brand manager at that time, I was given very specific task or activities to focus on, and which I had to execute. So it was more brand oriented. It was more of, brand related, increasing the noise level, more of product related, things what we were been really doing. The era where, we moved from definitely the brand. Then it was more of image building activities, and the a lot of corporate image, corporate quality which came into picture. Then we moved into the customer relationship management. I remember there was a big fad among every organization getting into task force, to basically the medico-scientific type of approach, where it was more of customer relation management, and knowing your customer well, and then because he's a king, of course he's going to identify what is perception. Now if you see the last 2 years, the type of the situation what we are absolutely stormstruck and don't know how things, because whatever we were doing, at the end of the day, if you still feel that we still, after 20 years, 24 years, I still I see my product managers, and that's how it is, that we are making those visual aids and all those things. We are into the same cycle meetings and all those things. Only the forms and the deliverables have changed, but the main process still remains 60% remains the same. So now I see that it's more into digital. Of course, now we have transferred. Initially, when in the first 1 year, we saw that everyone doing Zoom calls, or doing all those things, but that also everyone doing the same thing. And I come to know that when I interact with my doctors, they say there was in a day in the morning, they hate to see random WhatsApp messages, the good morning calls with brands and all. So when we say digital, it doesn't mean that those WhatsApp messages or having those video calls is not definitely what we say digital. Now digital evolving to phygital, and I'm sure now the way forward what I see is definitely more of a digital. When I say digital marketing, it's more of AI, how we extend the doctors or the medical fraternity, how we extend our technology with the help of AI, how we ease his work, or the doctor's work, about addressing the patient needs. I think that's what it will be, more of a digital technology which is going to come. But yes, it will not substitute the physical one, but I think all the efforts will be there to replace it and change the whole paradigm.
Right. So if I understand you correctly, you have said that the transition has happened from the brand-centric approach to the customer-centric approach in the early 2000s, to when the fad was, as you said, customer relationship management, or CRM as it was called, in whatever form or avatar, and now moving into the phase of digital marketing, where you choose the appropriate channels to engage with the customer. So yes, there has been that, and the digital piece, as we know, in the last 2 years, has become inevitable because of the pandemic situation, where you're not able to access or reach the customer enough because of the lockdown situations prevalent in most parts of the country. So continuing from the evolution piece, if marketing as a function has to evolve, then it is obvious that the people who handle the marketing function, that is our brand managers, marketing heads, etc., also need to evolve. It's obvious, because the people have to evolve along with the function to stay current. You have, excuse me, you have had a chance to again work with brand managers, hire brand managers. What's your take on the current level of marketeers who come in with certain skill sets and competencies? Are they well developed on certain skill sets? Do you see certain areas of hand-holding? And especially around the strategic marketing piece that I'm talking about, strategic marketing fundamentals of brand building, and more so with respect to brand building and brand planning. What's your take on it? So I just want to hear your few thoughts on it.
Yeah, so I think, Shailesh, as I mentioned, that we've been evolved over a period of time. So as you rightly said, from brand-centric approach to, we've evolved. So to be very now, whatever the new generation people which I see, they're very sharp. Of course, a lot of spark in them, and really happy to say they've got the type of knowledge they carry, and they bring on the table, and the freshness of ideas what they bring is definitely enormous. What I see is right now the new set of managers, you need to be a multitask manager, because as I said, because you are into an evolved market where you need to do multitasking, cross-functioning, that is one of the most, because even, you have to be a product champion, if I would say, because during our times, it was okay that, your brand, you know the science behind it, and that's it. And then, you do it. But today, when I say you are a product champion, right from, identifying the product, right from, whether it is own manufacturing, sourcing, developing, or talking with your R&D guys, having those sort of cross-functional skills is more important, because you need to interact with your regulatory guys, you need to interact with your the medical guys, understand the planning process. So you need to be a multitask manager, you need to be a cross-functional guy, because it's not about an one-man show that is going to be. You should know everything about the supply chain, because the availability of the product, definitely you don't stick on keep yourself dependent upon the feedback from the supply chain guy, but you need to be on top of everything, even in terms of the core marketing as well, whether it is your internal or external customers. I would say that the domain horizon has expanded. You need to have whatever the product or the portfolio you are handling. It's not enough that you only know about that product. You need to know about that entire therapy, because that is how you're going to add. So the shift will happen from product management to more of a therapy management. And that is what you bring on the table, to the medical profession, where, they are also keen that not only this product, but if it's a pandemic, when if it is dengue. So you've seen so many maps getting utilized, and there are new products which have come up, good, bad, ugly. Though we don't have the enough studies about it, but definitely it saved so many lives. So if you have a helicopter view approach of the entire therapy, it's definitely going to help you to be more of an evolved manager as compared to the earlier days.
Beautiful, Vinod. As I was listening you rapidly, I was, cascading the thoughts of what you're saying. So one is from a, single point entity has become a multitasking manager. So he has to look at a 360-degree approach for the brand, if you say that right.
Yeah, very
Sourcing of the product, the business model of the product, the fixing the, the supply chain, doing the marketing, doing the finance part of it, and getting into the distribution and regulatory, as all what you have said. So he's more evolved at a 360-degree level,
Yeah.
which he's to play a role. Second important piece, what you have said is that his role doesn't stop with just pre-commercialization or commercialization. He has to also launch the product, ensure its execution excellence, and then ensure that it goes into the field. So that's the expanded role and responsibilities that brand managers are now expected to obviously play, and they do.
Absolutely.
So, Vinod, at this, when we talk about this evolution and expansion of this role, etc., obviously it comes with a certain level of skills and deep understanding of the marketing domain, right? And there are certain aspects of strategic marketing when you talk of, right, like a good, solid marketing program, brand positioning, inciting techniques, life cycle management, and those parts of pure strategic, because brand managers in doing multitasking can get very tactical at times and they miss out the strategic piece. So knowing that you focus on the core strategic piece as a head, so how do you try and ensure that your team guys are staying true to that? They don't lose focus, because that is what gets the results at the end of the day. If you have some thoughts to share on this.
So definitely, Shailesh. So for example, now pandemic has been a very good example for us. We really looked into a lot of now, for example, now I'm handling the nutrition portfolio. We really depth into the the OTC model, or where things were there, and then the digital marketing space. Whether even we are also exploring into the e-commerce platforms, where everything goes on a standstill, and then things are still there, and this thing. So I think we closely monitored how the FMCG things work, how the supply chain works out there, and how the products, the messaging or the core product values have been driven to it. So that's where we identified internally within our teams, which are those key segment areas where we are looking at. So we really observed, we analyzed, we had an internal sensitization, stimulation part of it. We also did few pilot testing about running the model. So that really helped us to be in top of it. So I think trying out new things, you should not shy away. Yes, you may try out 5 or 8 new things, and not necessarily that all 8 things will work for you. But even if those 2 or 3 clicks, the unsuccessful part, or the 4 things which really didn't work, they really give you a lot of learning and understanding. and that really helps you to trigger the whole process. So even if you try out 8 7 8 new things, so I'll definitely suggest not to shy away from trying out new things in the market. Whatever will work, you can really customize it, tailor make approach based upon your need, what is to be addressed in the market. And I'm sure things really will help out, because if we go with the same old custom made, process which we've been following since last 5 years, 10 years, may not necessarily work. So I'll definitely say we need to take that risk, move ahead and try out various things. That itself will give us a lot of learning, and the results are really amazing results that you get out of it.
Right. So Vinod, when you encourage your team to try out 7 or 8 things, are you saying that you're fostering a culture of experimentation, creativity, innovation in
Of
your
course,
teams?
of
So,
course.
is it fair to say that as a leadership of your team, you are telling your people don't have the fear of failure?
Yeah, absolutely, Shailesh.
And do you think that is important that marketing heads and business heads should tell that don't have the fear of failure, don't have the fear to, even if 4 out of 10 things work, it is still a great job done? Because many times brand managers find it scary because if they fail, the punitive action or whatever. So you're open to failure or open to experimentation as a part of the culture.
Yes, Shailesh, I endorse it, because if you work in a very fixed approach framework, then you will be just doing the same things again and again, and there is no newness which comes on the table.
Correct.
Really want to, and as a business head, if you are asking your team, you have considered the risk factors, right? And then only you are going to give them the approval for it. So the risk factor is definitely taken, and that's the reason the business heads or the business leaders need to take into that account, because you might try, not all things are going to succeed. So that failure is definitely taken, but until and unless you don't give your guys a chance to really think out of it. We always say think outside the box, think outside the box. But if you don't give them the right atmosphere and opportunity to do it, they are never going to do it. So I definitely encourage people to really go out to do. If you have the thing of failure, I think as business leaders, we need to really take that fear out. Then only things people will happen. Otherwise, we will still be doing the same things again and again.
Beautifully said. Thank you so much for that endorsement, because it sends a very strong message to the marketeers community that when you don't have fear of failure hanging heavily over your head, then you're free to express your creativity, innovation, take those bets. Some may pay off, some may not pay off, but you're still pushing the needle forward. You're still pushing the organization forward. And if something really works for the first time, then it is going to bring in that much more delta in terms of business, in terms of revenues and market shares and new products getting accepted. So thanks for that that endorsement. That it sends a strong message as a leadership committed to innovation, and in marketing. And marketing without innovation, you will agree, is really not good enough, right? At some point you need to bring freshness, etc. Now I want to switch the discussion to a little bit on the current piece or emerging fields in marketing. And one of the fields, hot topics that we have is the subject of data analytics. Now, it's a lot is spoken about data analytics, data-driven decision making, and before you put in money, investment, resources, you need to have your data on the table. Does it make sense, etc. So every organization has its own approach to this new field, which is very relevant as a part of your commercial excellence function of in an organization or at a business leadership function that you are at. So either you have a comics function or a leadership function, one and the same, of data-driven analytical decision making. So the point is, again, every organization has set of data. Marketeers are encouraged to look at data and then they take outcomes. How has it been in terms of experience for you? Do you believe in this, and are you moving steps in that direction? And how do you see this emerging in the next 1 to 2 years time? Data analytics piece, yeah.
Of course, Shailesh, knowingly, unknowingly, we've been working on data right from last 20-25 years. Whether it is ORG, IMS, so called, you could say AC Nielsen data in whichever segment, because it was always data driven, because the type of companies where we had so many brands which were launched, and we were always competing to see what are your competitors doing, ORG ranking, where are you? So data was always, important, and every time we really get into the data. But as you rightly said, for example, in the organization where we are working into now, for example, I'm now with Presidio, so you don't really get, because we are into a niche segment, and you really don't get the ready-made data which is there in the market. So we always look into, and now the new field of data analytics, or whether it is those forecasting or the stimulation models are available. So definitely there's a lot of opportunity, and I see a lot of scope getting into it, because currently what we see is at times we find really ourselves handicapped because we don't get a ready-made data, and then you use reference points, you have the whatever figures we have, then we have our own internal framework of deriving or coming to that data, which are always on assumptions.
Assumptions.
That could be more on assumptions, or your guesswork along with whatever the reference data is. So you always stimulate those references, your own data, and then you come to whatever the best judgmental data, whatever we have. So though currently we have not tried much of the data analytics model right now, but I see there's a lot of scope and potential. It will definitely come handy with such an emerging market which is there. So I am looking forward that how we could really get the use of it.
Right. The other aspect which is critical and strategic in nature is the brand planning methodology or the brand planning philosophy, which varies from organization to organization. So in your organization, I'm sure brands are obviously large and they have sizable presence in various segments of nutrition and in application devices and other sectors of your business. So I don't need any details, but I just want to understand your philosophy in the sense, when you plan for your brands, do you plan it with a short-term horizon, long-term horizon? Do you consider, the current trends, and do you also consider the future trends? How does it all happen? So I just want to understand a bit about it. Yeah.
Sure, Shailesh. And first of all, let me really be glad that I'm talking to you on this topic, because if you remember, we had a very big workshop on brand building, where you really helped us in reformatting our entire process out of it. So I think really glad that we did that exercise together when I was the marketing head, and we had a 360-degree approach at that time what we had. So by and large we have our own internal process. So we normally start our budgeting planning right from August. That's when we really start up, and then we ensure so when I talk about brand plan, as I mentioned that with your help, we really had a good insight on various the 360-degree approach, right? Not only on the core product values, but we incorporated all the models which were available. We included part of it. So normally, as I said, we start the process by July, or August, September, and then we have our budgeting plan fixed by September. And
Okay.
and plans all come in picture. We ensure that by the November, December, all the brand plans for the top product categories are been done. We normally do for 5 years. So we have a immediate for the year, then we have a mid-year, mid-range, which is 2 to 3 years, and we have a long-range planning of up to 5 years. So which frequently gets visited every year. So we plan for this year, and then we have a broader scope of things, the strategy plan for the next 5 years, which as the years progress, we go on refining it every year.
Great. And that's a classical brand planning, strategic planning process that you follow every year, and in terms of not just the current brand plan, but also the long range operating plan for 5 years.
Absolutely.
Great. Vinod, the last 5 years has been very, very different and disruptive for our pharma industry. Never before. You have seen where there has been a very powerful intersection of technology and health, which has kind of disrupted the pharma industry at different levels. So one is, disruption at the level of the retail distribution itself. Like, for example, the brick and mortar retail outlets are struggling because you now have the e-pharmacy chains, which have come in a very big way, from an emerging threat, now they are a real threat. And they have consolidated, and now they have been taken over by larger organizations like the Reliances of the world and the Tatas of the world, who are putting in deep money and investments to build that capacity and that kind of service to the customer, with all the models that they have in place. So e-pharmacy is going to be a very big thing, and our industry obviously still is, coming to terms with that piece of the business that is getting disrupted. Then we know you have physicians' power has kind of lowering now, because what passed about 10, 15 years ago today doesn't matter. You have democratization of physics. You have model platforms like Tracto, which has come in and kind of totally disrupted. Then you have home delivery or retail chains. You have kind of everything, MRI at home, echocardiography at home. And so the patient power has just gone up. He has a choice to make like never before. So he's become very, very important in the decision-making process. Then you also hear of old institutions like Thyrocare being taken over by the new. So much is happening in this space, and it sometimes becomes difficult to fathom, right, as industry guys. So when at your end, when you head this business and you see so much of disruptions and changes happening, how do you make sense of it at your senior leadership level, your level? And do you factor these changes in your brand planning, business planning exercises? Or how do you say, is this going to really affect our business? What is your take on these disruptions that are happening? And do you think you factor this into your organization? It's just a question,
Absolutely, Shailesh, very much relevant. And as you rightly said, it's been really disruptive, I would say, what is, and as you rightly said, and now if you see things are unfolding from brands or innovations, now we are moving towards generics. So we definitely, we do discuss internally in our, business meetings and, leadership meetings. This topics definitely regularly we come up, and we are also, believe me, nobody has got a ready-made answer, but that's where I'm saying that, but the organization has been, ready to open to new ideas, thoughts, and then and we'll have to change as and when that really, and we have to laterally, rather than change, we'll have to be more adaptive. So right. Yes, we do have a cognizance about the way the things are changing, and the retail segment getting moved. That's the reason I said we're also exploring into whether the e-business model, whether that works, whether right. What are the different business models. We keep discussing, challenging, and try, and we also do try out certain new models which are available. And as that's the reason I was very upfront in saying that we do try out multiple things, and 2 or 3 really doesn't work. Really doesn't work, but 1 or 2 really works, and then we really get inspiration from it, and that's how we've been adaptive. So definitely our brand plans, we do keep up cognizance about the changes, the new developments which are happening, and we try to adopt what closely matches to our business model, and we really are on the look also on what new things can be done into it. So definitely, otherwise we'll be out of business. I'm going to say, till you right. really keep a cognizance about the new things which are happening and adopt to the changes. Definitely, that's one important point that we do.
And you have also handled for a long time the function of business development, right? Not only in your current role, but also in the earlier role with your same present employer. And I'm sure business development is not just in licensing or out licensing, but it also involves potential acquisitions to drive the inorganic growth of the organization. So do you see that also accelerating in this coming period? Because what COVID has shown is that the big brands have just got bigger, and the small brands have just virtually disappeared because the patient choices is of those comfortable brands which he has been using for years together. What's your take? Do you also look at inorganic growth modes also for your organization?
Yes, Shailesh, we look from the, for example, we largely look from the most of the inorganic type of growth. Definitely the most of the decisions happen from our corporate office in Germany and also at the regional level levels. But definitely we do look into, that's the reason I was saying, we look more of a therapy approach when we look into, in synergizing with ours. So we don't want to lose our expertise. We have a niche. So we see to it that in that niche, how we can expand our horizon, sticking to the same niche, how we make sense of therapy, and how do we look into it. And keeping this in mind, definitely we also look into, as you rightly said, the smaller brands, or the JVs, or looking for, apart from the normal in licensing and outsourcing, we also look for what are the opportunities, how we can expand our portfolio within the same organization. But by and large, it's driven through our corporate offices, and definitely, so there's a lot of discussion which happens with our regional offices. So it doesn't.
But the local, okay,
but definitely that.
Yeah, definitely. And the local acquisition targets obviously are suggested by you in the India office too.
Of course, yeah. So the local things obviously we discuss internally, and then we take it up.
Great, great. The last part of our conversation, Vinod, I will respect your time, and that is in the new. Now we have. I want to pick your mind on digital marketing and the way forward in terms of engagement, not only with physicians but your sales force, etc. So again, disruption has been so rampant in the last 15, 16 months. All companies have suffered reduced access to customers. You're not able to make calls, or the digital calls that are happening. You're also trying to do a lot of other digital initiatives like webinars and CMEs online, etc., like others do. And at the same time, we're trying to build digital connect with patients through telemedicine, telehealth, etc. So could you give us a broad sense, how has your organization, you especially as the head of your team, tried to cope with this disruption that has come out of the pandemic, but still maintain business continuity? And what are the major things that you see that is going to move forward? I mean, I want to ask you, do you think digital is now here to stay, or will it go back to the physical mode of calls once everything hopefully settles down? Or what is your take on this whole thing?
Yeah, Shailesh, it's a very prominent question which we nowadays we regularly discuss, and I'm sure a lot of the pharma colleagues may be discussing the same topic on what is that and how do we tackle it. So as you rightly put, the initial of the pandemics last year, we were absolutely not prepared, and like everyone, we were also into a big fuss, because nobody expected it to to get this blown out of proportion. We all thought that okay, this could be just a 1 or 2 month happening, which will be settled or taken care of. But as time progressed and we saw that, so we really were we prepared? Definitely we were not prepared, at least from our point of view. But definitely then what we really started is we took some time initially to really gauge out what things to be done. But yes, the management was quite responsive. So we all took a collective decision, and then we really started up with the digital, whether it is called the CMEs, or all those type of activities what we could do. The to be very honest with you, we also tried to definitely get feedback from the customers, and believe me, initially the customers were very irritant, because as I told you, everyone every day, all the customers telling me morning they were shit scared to see their messages or the WhatsApp messages, because they had almost 30-40 companies, brands floating their so-called reminder cards on it, and and every day they had almost 10 to 15 Zoom meetings, and the doctor is himself confused on what am I supposed to attend and what not. So I feel definitely, and because there were not much options available, I'm sure every organization get into this same mode of things of doing. So having said it, what has now over a period of time in last 1 year, we've seen that yes, everyone is into meetings, everyone into digital CMEs, but at the end of the day, the customer looks really for what is the value addition for him. So unless and until you don't give him that differentiation or uniqueness, no matter what you do, it's not going to help. So I think back to basics, if you really see, your right segmentation, positioning, and knowing what is your customers need, and if you really have a tailor-made approach for that customer, I think that is why we really feel, I personally feel, going forward, the tailor-made approach or personalized, marketing is going to really help, and that definitely cannot come without digital. So of course, digital is here to stay. That is going to be the future. At the same time, will the physical approach, can we do away with it? We cannot. I think if we all ignore, because this is what has been working, so it will take some time. So it's not going to be a substitute for your whatever the physical activities we are going to do. And as I said at the start, when we discussed, we've been following a particular set of pharma model, say the visual aid and the personal meeting, 10 call average. So I think that has been followed rigorously by all the organizations. So if it has worked for 20, 25 years, it will not suddenly disappear in the next 3 or 5 years. So that will continue. But yes, the digital passion will take over, and we can see this happening over a period of time. So I think in next 5 years, definitely the digital space, the AI space is going to really play a crucial role in the pharma segment, and that definitely will be the decision making process will really happen, whether what how it is going to really progress. So in the next 5 years, a lot of things will change. And till that time, I think the physical mode will also continue. So it's going to be a dual thing which we need to continue with.
Okay, great. And how about the L&D piece, Vinod? That is the learning and
Sorry?
the L&D piece, the learning and development. So the L&D team or the training team, as we call in different
Yeah,
organizations,
yeah.
for both sales and marketing, they would also be obviously have a lot of role to play in this entire process, right? So where do you see they also complementing you and your marketeers then?
So definitely the LNDPs also have been, we have moved into more personalized type of, learning and development programs, rather than initially it was more of a carpet bombing activity. All the product managers going through the same set of, workshop exercises. So again, as an organization, the current organization what I'm working, definitely they have a good model where they have developed. So we moved into more of a personalized training and development program where there's a lot of support which comes from our our domestic HR team, working with our regional teams and the corporate teams, where I see that similarly as the market is going towards the personalized need about development and training programs. So the carpet bombing approach is not going to work. So I think the skill set improvement, whatever requires that domain skill sets to be added. So that specific trainings are definitely going to be the future.
And these personalized programs for individual people are all in-house, or you also do you see potential to tie up with? Now there are a lot of online players who offer tremendous amount of educational tools, right? Like Unacademy, Udemy, LinkedIn. Do you also foresee that also as a potential partnering for?
Yes, Shailesh. Right now it is in house, and we are already in house. When I say that, it comes through a thing, but of course tied up with some good, academies or institutes. So definitely, because you not get all the skill set or in-house training, you definitely outsource. So you'll have to. So I see definitely a lot of potential to tie up with some big houses where they bring in the required skill set.
So Vinod, if that means if we can read in between the lines, it means that now the generation of marketeers cannot complain that they are not being trained enough. Because training is not what you and I went through, where we went through a program, but now you have the tools and resources in your box. You have to customize it for yourself because nobody is going to train you now. You have to train yourself.
Absolutely.
So I think that has been a disruption again. So nobody is going to go through that 21 days training program. You have to learn and get trained yourself on the fly, because today you have access to so much of data out there and training modules all over the net through LinkedIn and Udemy and Unacademy and so on and so forth. So I think that is something which so that's a message, I think, that brand managers now cannot expect training.
It's more of on the job training, self training, getting accustomed.
Absolutely. And not the B school training like IIMs and all that stuff. So I think that's also a major shift in a way L&D works around with this piece.
Absolutely, Shai, completely agree with you.
Great. Vinod, it's been fantastic talking to you, and I've taken up about almost 45-50 minutes of your time, but it's been wonderful, and thanks so much for those valuable inputs that you gave me all throughout your career in terms of product management, marketing, the way you handle your teams, etc. And I'm extremely delighted to have this conversation. But before we sign off, any closing messages or take-home messages that you would like to give to our community of marketeers, which essentially comprises of brand managers, group product managers, marketing heads, and even sometimes business heads, who would like to just watch in and say what is there for me to learn. So if any messages you would like to give us.
I think, thanks, Shailesh, definitely. And first of all, really, I'll really like to thank you and really congratulate you for this initiative, because when we go back to our times, we didn't have this, opportunity or facility what you are making it available. So I think really congratulations and really a great thought by you. And definitely for all those budding upcoming, marketeers, don't let any opportunity go waste. Please take it up. As I said, have no fear and don't shy away of, as most of us, when we were into marketing, we were really, very, very much to the process of, remaining, glued or stuck to same one plan. But I think now you can, those days are gone. I think you should be open to grab any opportunity that you find, if you're really clear about where you want to be. If you're clear that you want to be a good marketeer, you need to be open to have, not let go any opportunity, whether it is into sales, whether into gaining a knowledge from the regulatory, medical. So keep yourself available and open for all such opportunities, which will help you to rise up your ladder. Don't shy away and have the fear of trying out, because you will be left alone if you don't really try out. So if you really want to be adaptive to the new things, you need to be open to any challenges that life throws upon you and have the courage to grab it and perform and succeed in it. I think that will really help us all to really, have a great career ahead.
Any other message, or is that all?
That's it, Cherish. I think that will take care of whatever the challenges we have in future.
No, thank you so much, Vinod. Again, great pleasure to have you on our series, and as one of the really respected business leaders. So thanks a lot for your time. Look forward to stay connected, and thank you so much.
My pleasure, Shailesh. Thank you very much. Thank you for making me a part of it. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Cheers.